Anything that's bonus is good. Hello and welcome to the Park Stop Podcast, episode 30. My name is Alicia Stella. With me as always, my co-host Ian.
Hey kids.
And joining us today is a very special guest, Seth Kubersky, journalist and author of The Unofficial Guide to Universal Orlando 2021 edition, available now. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm a big fan of your work.
Wait, we've had you on for our Terminator episode on Patreon.
Yes, it's been a while though.
But not this is your first appearance on the regular episodes.
Yes, I'm glad to be on the main stage finally.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about what it's like visiting the theme parks in 2021. Maybe talk a little bit about how it has changed since the parks reopened last year. Remember, we thought this was only going to be for a few months, and maybe what our predictions are for the rest of this year and the future. And we'll talk a little bit about both the parks, but also mostly Universal, because
We're here to celebrate all the parks, but mostly Universal.
Yeah, exactly. It's a salute to all theme parks in Orlando, but mostly Universal. I got my copy of The Unofficial Guide, Universal Orlando 2021, which not only do I believe is the best book because my name appears in it once, but also because it's actually pretty helpful for anyone planning, especially during these very unusual times.
This is what we professional journalists call a bribe. No, no cash changed hands for any of the recommendations in the book. They are, as everything in the Unofficial Guide, there are honest recommendations, and your podcast and website are definitely top of our list of places we recommend people go to get good, updated information about the parks.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually very much appreciate that. And I do, I read the front matter of this edition. I haven't had time to read the whole book yet, but
front matter is really the only part that matters. I mean, you don't need anything past the introduction. Come on.
Yeah. I like to believe that I know everything else in the rest of the book, but no, the front matter, I like how you start by saying, why is it unofficial? Well, it's unofficial so we can say whatever we want. That's why it's unofficial.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of interesting in the world of travel writing, how incestuous the relationships between journalists and the things that they're covering can get. And it can go as simple as taking an invite, taking a comp ticket to go to the park, and it can be as complicated as people having financial relationships and selling tickets and stuff. Our job at the Unofficial Guide is to be on the side of the consumer. We don't accept any freebies. I personally, through some of my other jobs, I occasionally get invited to press events, but anything that we cover in the Unofficial Guide, we make sure it's based on us paying to see things like everyone else. And because we all know that what happens at a press event, what happens at a media preview is not always what the average guest experiences. And everything in the Unofficial Guide is unbiased, and we don't accept any kind of financial remuneration from the places that we cover, so that we're being honest about our recommendations.
Speaking of being honest, I did want to kind of veer into another direction temporarily and ask both of your guys' thoughts, because the breaking news that's been going on the last week and what we'll be talking about probably next month when it officially grand opens, whenever that might be. But what do you guys think about Super Nintendo World in Universal Japan? Because I do want to mention it on this episode just to show that this wasn't pre-recorded months ago, and we are aware that there is a big hubbub about the Mario Kart ride.
I think hubbub, when we're talking about maybe a few dozen people on social media who are way more invested in this than the general public or even the general enthusiast. I don't know if hubbub really qualifies. I think the vast majority of the responses that I've seen, including my own, to everything at Super Nintendo World has been really positive. I think that if you're going through trying to find fault, any kind of art can be critiqued, but this is a huge, ambitious, game-changing thing that they've done, and there's a lot to applaud. So if if your first reaction to this, you know, huge new gift that Nintendo and Universal has given the world is to judge, you know, this thing that's meant to be experienced in person, based on a YouTube video, and immediately declaring it the worst episode ever. You know, why do you why are you into theme parks if that's your first reaction? I don't know. These are full, spoiler filled, complete POVs of all the attractions, all the walkthroughs. So, you know, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it over to Japan next week or next month. So I went ahead and spoiled myself. But I don't necessarily suggest that you do. If you have any chance of, you know, keeping this a secret and just experiencing it the way the creators intended, do that for yourself. We're professionals and we have to suffer. But you know, don't do that to yourself if you don't have to. I mean, do we really want to talk about specifics of why some people seem disappointed in Mario Kart and why they are wrong? I don't know.
I think it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous to judge it anyway. Like you were just saying, Seth, to judge a ride you've never been on based on a video is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Yep. It should be
unless it's Fast and Furious, and you can absolutely judge Fast and Furious.
Agreed. Actually, don't even watch the video. Just don't go on it. Just avoid it at all costs. It's really not worth your time.
I mean, all right. Let's cut to the chase. You know, people want a fast ride, but people also want complete, immersive, detailed sets.
Yeah.
And those two things cannot go together.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at something, I'd say the closest thing to a fast car ride with detailed immersive sets would probably be Cars Land.
Right.
Out at,
and it's not even that the ride itself is super detailed during the fast portions. It's that you're driving through an immersive land.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So notice that all the fast rides at Disney go outside the building when they go to the fast part. There's a reason for that. Your building would have to be the size of your theme park if you were going to do an indoor fast ride.
Right. And we're talking about you know, Osaka, where land is the premium, and we're also talking about an attraction that was originally designed to be squeezed into Kid Zone. So if you were going to build a show building that's as large as the fans seem to think that it should have been, you'd need to take out half of the park.
Well, if people got their dream Mario Kart ride, you need a building the size of the Truman Show set.
Exactly.
Because they want the full Mario Kart experience. And I don't want to get too much into it because we'll talk about it on our episode. I just wanted to get your thoughts while you're here. But
my only criticism and this is just based on watching the video, is I think the scenes themselves are charming, and I don't really mind the slow speed, because I think in person with the AR going on, it's going to feel a lot more active. I do wish that for at least a couple of the transitions, they had used that warp pipe idea that they had patented, that would have used moving set pieces to create the illusion of intense speed. I think the Rainbow Road projections on the floor and the walls at the end are amazing, and I think that is great. But I think that warp pipe patent would have been really clever if they could have done that.
Yeah, but we're back to typical theme park fans too. They're never happy. They complain about everything.
Right.
Give them more, they complain. Give them less, they complain.
I think that when this finally opens stateside, a lot of people who are complaining about a video will turn around and be, waiting 7 hours and declaring it the best ride ever.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Let's talk about theme parks in a pandemic. Seth, you've been going to the parks.
I have.
So you're the expert now on what it's like to visit now. Obviously, you've been visiting quite a bit before the pandemic hit also. So you have a good comparison to what it was like before to what it is now. And you've been visiting since they opened and still visit now. So you know how they've changed things. Overall, I think everyone listening probably knows, they're doing the temperature checks. You have to wear a mask when you're not actively eating or drinking while stationary, which is a newer addition to the thing. It used to be just while you're not eating or drinking.
And that is that's I think the one source of friction that I've most noticed between guests and the employees who are tasked with enforcing. You mentioned, I've been going since they started, and the basic rules have not changed. You're right. Social distancing, temperature checks, got to wear your masks. What's changed is the specifics in how they've enforced it, and I've noticed it's especially kind of peaked around Christmas, and I've seen it continue. They've really got team members and cast members out in force with the little signs reminding people to keep their mask up, and have become much more proactive about spotting guests who aren't wearing their mask properly and giving them gentle, friendly reminders. That's the one source of friction is guests who don't get the idea that if I bought a popcorn or if I bought a soda, I can't just walk around, consuming it.
Right,
I've got to pull. And I've seen near shouting matches. People trying to explain, no, there's a bench there. Go sit on it. When you're done, then you move. It's kind of a very Western culture thing. If you go to parks in Asia, especially Japan, people do not walk around eating. So I guess they don't have that problem over there with their enforcement. But especially in the theme parks here, where we're so big on food festivals, and you've got all these booths. And you can try to find yourself a cocktail table or a trash can lid to balance on top of. But when literally, like, it's called drinking around the world, not drinking, stopping, and then moving around the world. So
and they recently
it's an adjustment,
right? And they recently instituted the no food or beverages into the queues. So
correct.
To help pass the time, people would like grab a beer or grab a pretzel or popcorn and then hop into a line, and you can't do that now.
I have consumed many a Wizard's Brew in the Gringotts lobby, and no, that's not an option anymore. But it's probably better for everyone. It's more sanitary. There's a lot of the changes that we've had for social distancing are things that I don't mind sticking around. I don't mind if I don't have someone right on my heels in a queue.
Yeah.
If we maintain 6-foot social distancing in lines for now and evermore, I'm all right with that because I like a little personal space. There are other things that are, of course, slowly slipping back, though. A lot of the parks were very stringent about leaving empty rows in theaters and leaving empty rows in ride vehicles, and have kind of backslid on a lot of that stuff. They've decided that if you install some plexiglass in the boarding section, then once people are actually on the ride, I guess if they're moving and it's a short enough ride, it doesn't really matter whether there's one row in between you and the next person or not. They've also done this in some shows where they used to be at about 25% capacity because they're leaving every other row empty and then empty seats in between every party. Now they're just sort of staggering people in every row, getting them back to closer to 50% capacity.
Right, like the Bourne Stuntacular.
Exactly. It's it's a balancing game. It's when you've got a show that's designed to seat 800 people and you're barely seating 200 an hour. Well, you're still paying that cast and crew the same amount. You can't necessarily perform more shows. So you've got to balance the people who are upset because they can't get into a show versus the people who are upset because they're now don't have as much social distance.
Yeah, and I think some of the loading every seat on Flight of Passage started recently, although there's rumors or reports that it's not every day. It might just be how long the line is or whatever. I was told, though, I could have a seat with no one next to me if I requested it. So the things like that, if you actually requested and they're able to, accommodate you, that's nice.
A great example of that is the Millennium Falcon ride.
Right.
They recently installed these. It looks like they ripped some sneeze guards off of a salad bar and bolted them to the back of the gunner seats. So if you're a single rider like me, for a while it was heaven because you would always get a ship to yourself. You'd always get to pilot.
Yeah, me and poor
and then
Trisha got to do a pilot and co-pilot. It was nice.
Then the last time I was there by myself, they tried to pair me up with someone else and asked the other person to sit up front and asked me to sit in the engineer seat, which is bad enough to start. The engineer
Right.
seat has never been great for motion sickness or visibility. But then when you have this smeared, greasy plastic sneeze guard 2 inches from your face, I noped out of that. And they were nice enough to say, well, you can just request and we'll give you a solo capsule. So
Yeah, for a
it's one of
5-minute
those.
ride in one of those shared air tiny capsules, it's a little different than moving like on the Frozen ride through an open space with wind in your face. Like this is a shared air tiny capsule.
Yes, I am not a PhD in fluid dynamics, but I'm always looking for where is the air coming from, where is the air going, and how long am I stuck in any one zone. 9 times out of 10, they will accommodate you. It can't hurt to ask.
Not to get too much into the science of it, because none of us are experts and I don't usually talk too much about it, but I think there was some discussion on the blogs anyway that I guess based on CDC recommendations, Disney was saying essentially if it's less than 15 minutes, it's okay to be not social distanced as long as you have masks on. And they were using this 15-minute rule for things, I guess, like Flight of Passage and stints where you're in small places for, short periods of time. But now aren't the medical experts saying that the newer strains that are spreading are...
member of my family that's not a doctor or a PhD, so I am happy to plead ignorance on the latest details of the UK variant and other new strains. Maybe we can get Dr. Fauci on your show.
That's true. I shouldn't say strain. I should say variant. I apologize.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we're always 2 steps behind. We're always working based on the information that, we thought was good last week or last month. And I'm sure, just like we look back at stuff we were doing 6 months ago, we're like, oh, that wasn't so smart. We're going to look back 6 months from now. And find fault with whatever's going on. I don't envy the people having to make management decisions in the parks because they're in such a squeeze. They're in the business of providing fun and providing an escape from the horrible real world, and at the same time they've got to try to keep people safe and protect the parks' reputations for being safe and clean. And it's almost a no-win situation.
Yeah.
I always tell people I feel safer going to the parks than I do going to my local grocery store, and that's still true. But there are things that if I just have a bad feeling, I listen to my gut, and I'll go to the parks and I walk around and I spend 90% of my time in the parks outdoors.
Right.
And if I duck into something that's an indoor dark ride, I take a look, and if I see it's an hour wait in an indoor queue, I'm going to leave that for another day.
Right. Yeah, and I'm the same way, and I personally don't like, I can't enjoy it if I'm eating indoors because then my mask is off. I'm inside. Yeah. Other people have their mask off. So I've only eaten outside at the parks, but that's where I feel comfortable. And I'm not going to go and wait inside too much. Like my fear is every time I go on Hagrid, I'm like, please don't break down while I'm in the cave. Please don't break down while I'm in the cave because there's only so much. And I would probably leave if it was starting to be too long in a tight space. So but you got to do what you're comfortable doing and everyone has their own comfort level. But the parks do as best they can, really.
In terms of outdoor dining, I want to give props to Universal. They've done, I think there is outdoor dining available at every quick service and table service location. And they've set up little sidewalk cafes outside of Finnegan's. And
Finnegan's was the only one without outdoor seating, and they added outdoor seating. That's great.
Yeah. There's great outdoor dining all over Universal. We had dinner on the balcony at Beachay not long ago. And,
nice.
They're doing a happy hour discount. It's still an expensive restaurant, but it takes a little of the sting out. And it's got that balcony looking out over the Portofino Bay is just one of the most beautiful spots in town. And there's great, if you're an annual pass holder, you can get up on the balcony at uh, Lombards
Lombards, yeah.
or Confisco,
Hmm.
and there's just great places to dine outdoors. There's really no reason to have to eat inside.
I mean, they added a ton of tables out in front of Burger Digs even, but
Hmm.
I still, because Pizza Predatoria is closed, I get my food at Burger Digs, walk all the way over to the seating area at Pizza Predatoria, and then have the whole thing to myself.
Yeah,
So like, there's even like they've added tons of seating. I actually wanted to talk about they're doing the Mardi Gras now, and they've spread
yes,
out the booths throughout the whole park instead of all in one small place, and then they've
and
actually set up little tables everywhere.
the thumbs up, not just for making us eat off of garbage can lids, but like some really clever table, like over by the Cuban tent, they have cocktail tables made out of bongo drums.
Yes.
And over by the Music Plaza, they've got these cubes that are labeled with the Mardi Gras logo. And I was there last night, and I burned through half of a 15 item sampler lanyard. And I think that was one of the best food investments I've made in a theme park lately. If you compare the prices to like the food festival or at Epcot, if you're an annual pass holder and you get one of those tasting lanyards, it works out to $4.33 for each item.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes beer, that includes liquor, that includes all the food items, including some of them like the crawfish and shrimp boil is normally $12.
Right,
So you're
includes
getting
that.
that for
And it
$4
never
and change.
expires, and you can use it for
Yes.
snacks, Universal Dining Plan snack credits
Um,
forever, right?
So I don't believe it is worth a full snack credit, because then you could use it as a butter beer. The verbiage on the lanyard says that it's good for bottled water, popcorn, and pretzels.
Okay.
But I don't think you can use it. I was able to use it for a churro.
Okay. Well, that's
So
cool if you
I
don't
might have
use
just
it.
been lucky.
It's
But
it's good if you can use it beyond the end of March, but it sounds like the food was so good you're going to use it all anyway.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I did last night. I did four food items and 4 drinks, and I was really happy with all of them.
What was your favorite food item so far?
The paella is a really great value.
Ooh.
It's a big pile of rice. The saffron seasoning is really nice. I got 2 mussels, 2 big shrimp, a couple scallops, some squid, and all of it was really tender. A lot of the time,
Nice.
when you have this mass cooked paella,
Yeah.
everything becomes rubbery.
Rubbery,
But like it was really well cooked, and it's even served in this cute little faux cast iron skillet. And the one
Aw.
touch that I love is that they put the little flag of the country in,
Yes.
in every food item. So I had a little
It's been
collection
great
of
for
paper
me.
flags at the
I'm looking at Twitter and I'm like, I don't have to ask where that is. I know exactly what
exactly.
booth that is.
Exactly.
That's perfect.
That was great. I had an empanada from the Puerto Rican truck that was every bit as good as the ones I get from Zaza's. And if you know Zaza's,
Oh yeah, I
really,
love
really
Zaza.
good Cuban place.
Do you did you try the Germany one yet?
The vegan bratwurst, oh my god! So I will give a head-to-head comparison with the vegan bratwurst that they are now serving for the Epcot Arts Festival in the African Outpost. The one at Epcot costs about twice as much and is slightly larger. Comes with a huge pile of slaw, which is just kind of filler, and this kind of odd tamarind curry sauce on top, which I was okay with, not crazy about. But the bratwurst at Epcot underneath is definitely a vegan bratwurst. The one and the Germany tent in Universal, I pulled everything off. I'm just eating the bratwurst, and I'm like, this tastes like meat. It was. I hope they didn't just like mix them up and give me the wrong. There isn't a no. I mean, this is a really, really good vegan sausage. It has the texture. It has that mouth feel, And
yes, hashtag mouthfeel. Yes.
It's all about that mouth, because you know, a lot of vegan sausages have a kind of graininess to them. They're like a little grittiness, and this had that kind of like sponginess of meat. And really good beer braised onions on top, a nice nubby spicy brown mustard. Came with a big pile of those house-made chips that they serve at Chez Alcatraz. And for $4.30, crazy.
What is the
good
normal
deal.
price on that? Is it like $8.99? I think.
I think that one was normally $7.
Okay, so
most
even better than
most of the items, are around $7. Some of them are as little as $4. Like there's Brussels sprouts that are $4. And the drinks, beers are basically all $7. You can get a Bacardi and Coke, and you can get it with different like if you want just a Bacardi Light, it's only $5. But if you want a Bacardi 8-year, it's $7, and even that's included in the tasting.
Really?
Yeah. There, I didn't see a single thing. There's a little logo next to everything on the menu that's included in the tasting.
Nice.
And even the Cuban sandwich that's $14 is got the logo.
Oh my God, that I didn't realize it was because it looks huge. But
I didn't order it because I don't know if maybe if you order it with the tasting they give you
maybe
it's a half portion.
Yeah,
that's
I'm hoping that actually that's possible because I want to try more food. I want the schnitzel, the pork schnitzel on a pretzel bun. It's supposed to be a slider, and the bun's a slider, but the schnitzel was like 4 times bigger than the bun in the photo I saw. So I'm looking, and they have a giant Bavarian pretzel there. Ian,
the pretzels are big.
Pretzels and beer.
Pretzels are big, and there's a really dark beer. It's a Rausch beer. If you like dark beers, highly recommend it.
And speaking of vegan offerings, the brownie skull from
Halloween
Halloween Horror Nights is back.
All right, so the bad news is that you can't use the tasting lanyard on anything in that bakery case inside the tribute store.
Okay.
But they do have a little case of savory food. They have like a crab hand pie and a couple other items, and those you can use for the tasting lanyard.
Okay. But there's a lot of vegan offerings at the actual booths too. I saw a couple
and
more.
they even have vegetarian and vegan logos and gluten-free logos on the menus this year.
So very impressive. Yep. This is technically like the first food festival at Universal, right? To fill a whole park.
It's funny. I don't know if anyone else got this, but there was an annual pass holder survey that went around 2-3 years ago. Asking about just this kind of thing. If you would be interested, if Mardi Gras was expanded into an international food festival, and a lot of these specific countries were mentioned in the survey.
Because last year's event, which was cut short by the closures, was actually like a test run. They had like one booth that was going to change every 2 weeks to be a different country, and we never got to Germany. And I really wanted to try it, but it ended up closing, I think, March when the parks closed. It was just about to be Germany. I was so excited. So it's interesting to see them just like, they didn't even get a full test, but it was enough. And now they got the whole park full of well-themed booths for carnivals around the world.
Yeah, I'd also like to give a hashtag UO fist bump to the food and beverage teams, because this is the first night of an event. They've never done an event with this many food booths serving this many different items spread all over the park. And I had the longest I waited for anything was 5 minutes at Puerto Rico, and that's because they were hand chopping the pork for the for some of the items for the mofongo. Yeah. And lines moved well. The staff was all friendly. Everything I had was prepared to match the menu descriptions. I really can't ask for much more on opening night of an event like that. I thought they really knocked it out of the park.
And on top of that, now we finally have an excuse to walk all the way down to Fear Factor.
Because
they have some booths.
Yes, they have a Bahamian booth down there that's serving a jackfruit, a jerked jackfruit bowl.
Wow!
They got jerked chicken and jerked jackfruit.
Nice.
So that's on my list to try next time.
That sounds good.
That's a little tricky spot though, because where they set the booth up is right next to where they've parked one of the floats. We didn't mention the floats. All the floats are out in the park, but they're scattered all around the park.
Yeah, I like that better than the soundstage thing that they did for Christmas. I thought
the soundstage walkthrough was fun. It was nice. A neat experience, but this is definitely more efficient in spreading people out
exactly
all over the parks. The only problem is, and they've got, they have someone up on the floats tossing beads and, dancing around. But right there at Fear Factor, it became kind of a pinch point. And that was the only spot of the night. I kind of had to detour around the far side of those Amity bathrooms to make it through because it was just a little congested there.
Switching gears to the because this is a salute to all theme parks, but mostly Universal. The Festival of the Arts, the Epcot Taste of the International Festival of the Arts.
Taste of the Epcot International Festival of the Arts 2021. Yeah. Which is actually it's become my favorite of the Epcot festivals because it's usually usually got the lowest attendance. The others have blown up so much.
Right.
It's a little more low key. The food is always gorgeous, and I feel like the offerings are a little more elaborate.
Lots of great desserts every year too. They go all out on the dessert stuff.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. In fact, this year there's at Morocco there's this cake that's like an orange with dark chocolate mousse cake and with like a green tea blob on top, and it's on the the passport that you stamp to get the free cookie, and like you could just buy 5 of those and just stamp it, get all your stamps from that. But I'm a big Broadway fan, musical fan, and I just loved the concerts that they would have. And those aren't there this year, but it was great hearing the Voices of Liberty doing their take on Disney musical songs.
Moving to the big stage from instead of being inside.
Yep, and they get to wear they get to wear their modern clothes instead of their
really
colonial clothes. Yeah. They're
I didn't realize that.
They kind of look like airline attendants, but
okay, gotcha. I have like some tiny bones to pick with the way that Disney does some things. Like I love
only tiny bones.
Yeah, this is the part where it's the airing of grievances.
Oh boy,
it's Festivus time.
Yeah, well, during the holiday time, they did some really great things to expand capacity for the parks. Like they rearranged every gift shop, especially exit gift shops out of the rides. Like if you go out of the Star Tours one, they've moved all of the stuff out of the middle.
Yeah,
and it's stuff like that is really smart that I don't see Universal doing. And I'm like, great, thank you for making it easier to social distance in this space. But then at the same time, it's like these taste of festivals are using the giant World Showplace building. And I have to go inside a building to get festival food that's normally in a booth outside. And I'm not sure why or how or like what good is this that I now have to go into a building when I never had to before the pandemic started? Because it's 2 festivals now they've done this.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm going to take the opposite. I personally love World Showplace. I'm thrilled that they reopened it and are using it. From my understanding, because when they first reopened, I attended the first media event that they did in that building right after reopening. It was for I guess that would have been the Food and Wine Festival.
And Wine, yeah.
And that was one of my questions. I was like, so why are we doing this? And I can't give you all of this technical details, but they told us about how that building has like one of the best HVAC systems anywhere on property.
And I guess it does take people off the streets too.
Yeah. And when it's cold, it's great because you can warm up. When it's hot or raining, it's a great place to shelter. They do a good job of controlling the capacity in there, so I've never felt overcrowded while I was in there. I get it if you're just
is everyone sitting or standing at their little tables without their mask on eating, and I have to go in there to go get, and it just feels wrong to me. But it is tall, it is a huge building, so the airflow is different.
Yeah, I can't disagree with anything you say, but I fully support your right to find someone else, send them in to get the food for you and tell them.
I'm usually the designated go insider. That's the problem. And then we go and take it outside. Which, by the way, and this is a little aside, we were attacked by spiny caterpillars outside of that building.
Ooh, those are bad. Those can really mess you up.
it prickled my arm to the point where I thought I was being stung by a wasp. And then we looked around, and everyone was walking by, stepping on them and squishing them because there were hundreds of giant spiny caterpillars all in front of the World Showplace. That I have nightmares about, because they look like the caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland. We're just stepping on them by accident.
You can get a reaction to those guys bad enough to send you to the hospital. I'm kind of surprised Disney has not encouraged them to relocate to a new home.
Well, that's what we get for eating outside and trying to be safe.
Exactly. Exactly. You could have just taken your food over by the Ratatouille bathrooms.
That wasn't open yet when I went. Moving away from festivals, I did like what you said in the book. Remember, Unofficial Guide, Universal Orlando 2021.
Plug.
Available now and at your finest booksellers and bookstores if they still exist, or online. I liked what you said about whether it's worth it to pay like a full price to go to a theme park right now.
Yeah, that section was kind of a product of the discussions we had between me and Bob Selinger and Len Testa, who are my collaborators on the Unofficial Guides. And what do we tell people? Because we've always said, Disney and Universal are ridiculously expensive, but you're also getting a world-class product. It's a lot of money, but you are, if you know what you're doing, you can get what you're paying for. And we argue, they're not discounting the tickets, especially when the parks first opened, and there's no parades, there's no fireworks, there's no characters, but you are still paying the exact same, daily ticket price, and is that worth it? And so a lot of it comes down to who you are and what kind of a visitor you are. If you are a once-in-a-lifetime visitor, someone who has been saving up for decades for your one and only visit to Orlando, now is not the time. Wait, 2022, 2023, there'll be great times to come. But if you're someone who, you're a local, or you're someone who can travel here safely and has been here before and knows what to expect, there's a lot of, for all of the awful things about the pandemic and the social distancing restrictions, there's also a lot of good sides to it. And I've had a lot of fun going to the parks. Going to the parks has been one of the few fun things I've had over the last 6 or 9 months. And a lot of people need something to look forward to. They need some joy. They need some distraction. And there are a lot of less safe places that you could be going than a theme park if you need to finally get out of your house.
I liked the comparison you made about getting your favorite sit-down restaurants to go.
Mm-hmm.
I like, going to Outback was something we did every couple months, and get our Bloomin' Onion and share a steak dinner. And we haven't been able to eat inside, or we haven't felt comfortable enough to eat inside. So we get it to go, and we bring home our Bloomin' Onion, and we have to put it back into the toaster oven to toast it up because it's not hot enough, but we're still paying full price. And I loved that comparison you made, because it's not the full experience, but we know that what they're offering and what they will offer after the pandemic will still be, high quality. And I'm going to be willing to pay to still get my Bloomin' Onion,
And yes, it's so funny. My wife and I were having this exact same conversation because we miss having a good steak. But it's like, I want a steak medium rare. And if you order a steak medium rare, by the time it gets to your house, it's medium well. Mm-hmm. But it's... I don't expect anyone to cry for multi-billion-dollar corporations. But if, everyone stops going to the theme parks, then the people who work for them are out of a job. And I think, it's not a charity. But the same way that I go and I patronize the restaurants that I love because I want them to still be around when this is all over, I'm continuing to patronize the theme parks, if nothing else, to support the frontline employees who need a paycheck.
Right. And not just Outback, but your local restaurants and your independently owned restaurants. Sorry, I have a sub place near me. It's named Lawless. Shout out. I love them. And I go like twice a week sometimes for lunch and bring it back home because I want to make sure that they're doing okay during this time.
Yeah, please buy local right now if you can. Please. That's my thought.
Except for the unofficial guide to Universal Orlando, which you can have shipped to you.
Exactly.
Right. But it's locally sourced right here in Orlando by Orlando natives.
Yes, if you have a local bookstore, you may purchase it there. But
yes, preferably a local bookstore, but get it where you can.
Yeah.
What's a bookstore?
No idea. There's some comic shops around me. Is that the same thing?
So okay. We talked a little bit about events, and something that I think people are starting to question now. What do we think about Halloween Horror Nights? How comfortable or how do we feel about on the other side of this year at the fall and winter? We have the vaccines rolling out now and there's lots of optimism, but at the same time we also have new variants and people are worried. I see some people complaining shouldn't we be getting announcements about dates for Halloween Horror Nights yet? And I'm like, are we sure we want to play get into that so soon? Because look what happened last year.
Yeah, I'm perfectly okay with their taking their time. There was a lot of stress behind the scenes for people who were working on Halloween Horror Nights, and it's like, we're having Halloween Horror Nights. Okay, we're not having Halloween Horror Nights. Okay, we're sort of having Halloween Horror Nights.
Right, exactly.
I don't want the people to go through that heart attack again on the design side. I want them to take their time, and I know HHN fans are demanding, they want every bit of information when they want it, but just be patient. Let them do the event the way that they know how, the best they can. I think there will be an event. If nothing else, this is their last chance to capitalize on the 30th. They couldn't do it Halloween 30, so they can call this year the 30th anniversary and sort of get away with it. But you can't make that fly next year. So it's now or never.
Do you think they will, or do you think they should, or would you want them to do the plexiglass thing as they did in their test with the two houses?
I don't have a good enough crystal ball to know what the world is going to be like in fall. I am very hopeful. I'm very optimistic that as we get into middle to late summer, that vaccines are going to be widely enough distributed by then that even though we're not going to stop the social distancing, there's still going to be 6 feet of separation. There's still going to be masks. And I think that's going to stick around probably well into next year.
Yeah.
But I think that they will, creep up capacity. They will bring back more live entertainment, and if everyone's wearing a mask, maybe they can get rid of the plexiglass.
Right.
I think that the plexiglass is really. I don't want to get myself in any trouble with the manufacturers of plexiglass. I'm not trying to slander or libel them, but I think that the use or overuse of it is sometimes a bit of health theater.
Yes.
And that it's a placebo. I think that it was great at the time for making people feel more comfortable, but I think by the time we get to fall, especially if they are able to design the mazes ahead of time, knowing limitations and not having to just retrofit it.
I was going to say the rumor is that most of these houses are already sitting designed, and that was partly why they canceled last year, is they didn't want to have to retrofit.
Yeah, but or at least that they can retrofit. They've got more time to think about it. It's not as rushed job.
They didn't use plexiglass. It was vinyl.
Okay, vinyl. Whatever transparent barriers. In some cases I found them distracting. In some cases I found that they were a clever form of distraction.
Did you get the glass sound effect when they smacked the plexiglass or whatever? I thought that was a clever use of it.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of good places where it was used well, and places where I thought it was kind of a little gratuitous, a little, because
I feel like that's to protect the performers from screaming. Screaming could be a projectile, and you want to protect the people behind the glass more. So this is the one time where a sneeze guard is actually useful, in my opinion.
Yes, because people screaming 2 inches from your face is not good.
Even with
but
a mask.
I want to see Beetlejuice again. I want to see the houses that we got to see previews of again, and I want
Oh,
to
that's
see.
right. I haven't seen Beetlejuice. I've only seen 2. There was a third house. I forgot
Yes.
about that.
Yeah, very few people got. I think that we kind of determined that Beetlejuice opening was a contractual obligation.
Yeah.
And that's why they didn't really advertise. It was one of those things that you had to
You
be
can't
in the know.
renew something that didn't open. So
Mhm.
they had to open it to renew it,
Yeah.
which is a bit of a stretch, but that's legalese for you.
So you can thank the lawyers for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that house was great, and I think that with a few tweaks, it could be even better. And I'm excited for more people to get to see it. It won't be 100% the old Halloween, I'm sure. They're gonna have to still limit capacity. The idea that they played with having some sort of guided system where you'd be directed to what lines you go in. I still don't think that's a terrible idea. I just think that it needs a lot of work to get something to function correctly, as as Volcano Bay's Tapu Tapu proved.
Have you heard rumors that the Tapu Tapu isn't going to be used for when they reopen later this month?
I did hear that. The last couple times I went to Volcano Bay after it reopened after the pandemic, Tapu Tapu wasn't being used simply because there wasn't enough demand.
Right. Everything was riding out
Basically, as long as there's only a 15 or 20-minute wait for something, there's no need for Tapu Tapu.
Gotcha.
And so, especially when they first opened this at the end of February, I think by spring break maybe they'll have to turn it on, but at least initially, there's going to be all the vloggers on day 1, and day 2, I think it's going to be a ghost town.
Yeah, I was wondering maybe they only use it for like the water coaster or if a line gets too long, like the Hagrid situation where virtual line is only instituted when the line is too long, but because
just as needed.
Yeah, exactly.
And
you can still activate your water
guess.
effects with the bracelet and use it for lockers and stuff.
Yeah, that's my guess.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything of them not distributing the bracelets at all, because those are so integrated into all the other functions in the park. I can't see them ditching those without having to come up with a lot of workarounds.
Before we wrap up, we didn't talk too much about why this book is actually useful, and you you describe year after year, not just in COVID times, but normally you describe every ride, what's good about it, what age groups it's good for, every restaurant, every hotel, all very useful information. This year especially, little COVID tips. I like that, with the little cartoon character wearing a mask, so that you have little tips.
Oh, that's cool.
That's our WUFO. So we've, for many years in the unofficial guides, we've had a little fluffy cartoon character who we used to call out things like rides that might make you motion sick, or rides that might be too scary.
Yeah, and the little cartoon version of him all motion sick and dizzy is adorable, by the way.
Yes. And so now we have a version of him that's wearing a face mask to help you identify highlighted COVID tips throughout the book. We're hoping that he's only around for an edition, or at 2 at the most. I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to lift all that stuff out, and this book can be a collector's edition that you look back on your shelf and say, boy, remember that pandemic we had?
It's still a useful book, even without the COVID stuff, because it doesn't intrude upon the normal actual information also.
Our goal is we give you a chapter right up front that sort of hits you right up front with all the details about COVID, and then we sprinkle it through the rest of the book. But we didn't want to overwhelm you. We didn't want every single ride description to be a reminder of COVID. So we tried to sort of have a balance.
Okay, so I had a question. I didn't look yet. Do you have the Velocicoaster in here for your ride?
We do. It is a little preview of the Velocicoaster based on the publicly released information, and some rumors that may have been shared through Orlando Park Stop.
That's nice. I did see the Epic Universe rumors and a couple other things, and I was like, that sounds familiar.
Yep. Well, anyone in this business right now who is reporting on things that might be coming up at Universal Parks is cheating off of your test. We all listen to your podcasts, and we all watch your videos because you are a great source of information, which is why I give you full credit as a place that people need to subscribe to.
Well, thank you so much. I remember last year getting under the wire trying to get details for the Hagrid coaster. And
Yes.
we were trying to pin down the ride length, and like the day before your book was going to press.
Yep. Yeah,
that was fun.
Universal always they love withholding information until something's almost open, and they always love to open something new right as I am going to print. So every year they manage to get me on something.
So, Comic Strip Cafe at Islands of Adventure, quality, poor to fair.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Long notorious for what?
Wait, where's your pizza place in there? Where's Rizzo's?
This is my Rizzo's.
I do not write the dining reviews in the Walt Disney World book. You can talk to Derek Bergen about those because he collaborates on those.
But I know. Okay, so yeah, no, it says long notorious for serving the worst food in Iowa. Comic Strip Cafe attempts to serve something for everyone and end up satisfying no one,
except Alicia.
And here's where it gets me. The Chinese, in quotes, dishes are pretty dire. How dare you? That's my go-to dish when I'm at Islands of Adventure.
Wait, which one do you like? The sweet and sour, or the is it they call it beef and broccoli? Is that what they're?
I'll have you know, I get the dragon platter, which comes with
the dragon
both.
platter.
Oh,
it comes
with
okay, so you double your pain. I get to, and I am, having grown up in New Jersey, I am a fan of terrible, greasy, inauthentic Chinese food.
Right.
We got a place near my house called Hot Bo that is just a guilty pleasure. I'm all for a good plate of General Tso's, but like Panda Express in City Walk is better than Comic Strip Cafe.
I actually don't disagree with you. You are 100% right. It's the worst of the only Chinese food that I think is worse than Comic Strip Cafe is the Antarctica Cafe in front of the Penguin ride at SeaWorld.
I had such high hopes for that when they were building that and they pitched that. That sounded like, wow, this is something that you just can't get at SeaWorld. This is a nice change for them. Oh no.
And that's the only Chinese food in the world that I think is worse than Comic Strip Cafe. But I still don't want the blasphemy. I love my Comic Strip Cafe, and I want it to reopen. It hasn't been open since the parks reopened.
I think it's still a break room for team members.
Is that what it is?
Checked.
Okay.
Yeah, there's hedges out front. I think they opened for a few days over Christmas. The only thing that I had there that I would almost recommend was they had a grilled fish pita sandwich that actually tasted like it had been a fish in an ocean.
The irony that the worst food in the theme park, and you get fish, and you're fine with that. You're like, oh yeah, the fresh fish is great though. Like
you seem to like all the worst places.
It takes a half an hour because they actually, when they were serving them, they actually made them per person, not. Because the thing is that Chinese food is like, I don't know, made it at 6 o'clock the previous night and just sat in a giant steam tray for like 24 hours to marinate.
It's a neat restaurant because if you order the chicken fingers, it's not the chicken fingers at every single other restaurant on property. It's the tempura chicken fingers. So it's just
that is a good tip, because I will say, when I was an employee, I used to be able to go in the grill and get the chicken tempura, and they had a lemon sauce that you get instead of the red sweet and sour sauce. That the stuff that's just like corn syrup and red food coloring.
Right.
That stuff's deadly, but they had a lemon sauce that was awesome.
I think if you're looking for a different type of chicken finger, if you have a picky eater that's like sick of their chicken fingers, it's at least a somewhat different breading. So there you go. It's got that going for it. So yeah, that has an overall C- grade, and then you go over to Shrek
generous.
4D. Shrek 4D has a B+ grade.
What?
3.5 out of 4 stars, right?
Who do I send a complaint to?
So Shrek is one of those things that is, it's hard for us to judge it fairly because we've seen it so much and we've gotten so tired of it because it has not aged great.
Which however, you do, to your credit, you do say that here. It is not.
However, it still gets surprisingly strong scores from our readers who are experiencing it for the first time.
Yes.
Now, granted, it's probably a lot cheaper for them to experience it for the first time on Netflix or something at home.
The DVD
it is
features.
available. Yeah. It's available on like every format known to man. You probably get it on
It's not
Viewmaster.
even the best short in the Halloween DreamWorks special.
It is not.
But you have to look back. One. The 3D effects, while there's other stuff that's come out that's better, they're still pretty nifty if you haven't done a lot of 3D movies. It actually scores better than It's Tough to Be a Bug.
Well, it doesn't scare the heck out of children. Yeah,
exactly. Scores much better with families. And there's still a lot of funny writing in there. There are lines, there's dialogue in there that even though I've seen that 100 times, still really makes me laugh. There's pop culture references that are they're dated now, but they're totally up my Gen X alley.
I'm not a fan of the moving seats and the pneumatic noise that comes along with it.
No, they're not good at all. In fact, we suggest there's non-moving seats that you can request. Hey, I won't be sad to see Shrek go.
Hitchcock was better.
Oh, amen. Hitchcock was a classic, and that post-show Hitchcock was
so good. Everything was so good about that.
Mm-hmm. You could easily spend 2 hours trying to experience the full Hitchcock experience.
Well, we could probably sit here and do a whole another hour imagining now that Blue Man Group is closing. If you were to close Shrek, if you were to maybe tell the Minions to find a new home, what you could do to the front of that park.
Mm-hmm.
Because the studios has been crying for a major revamp of that entrance for 20 years. It's maybe I think we say in the book that it's about the blandest entrance to a major theme park anywhere in the country. I'm not holding my breath for that. We've got I think Universal's got other plans before that happens.
Yeah. Well, I tweeted out the other day when I was in line for Hagrid and walked through the Sinbad theater, and I'm like, just walking through one of the 5 unused or closed theaters in Universal.
It's kind
Orlando.
of amazing. You've got Sinbad, Fear Factor, Toon Lagoon. It's crazy
Barney,
how
now
much
Blue Man Group.
How much real estate. And obviously this is not a good time for live theater, period.
No. But they closed Sinbad 2 years ago, so it doesn't have an excuse.
Yes. Sinbad was not about the pandemic. I can't blame that retroactively.
On that note, any closing thoughts from either of you?
Oh boy.
No, I just it is definitely, we're still in a weird time. Pandemic, no matter what certain leaders in the state of Florida might have you think, is not over. It's so, if you don't feel comfortable going to a theme park, totally not shaming you. I totally I get it, but it's still probably one of your safest forms of public entertainment that you can engage in right now. And I'm really hopeful that the closer we get to the end of this year, the closer we're going to get to normal. I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I hope it is not the Hogwarts Express coming to run us over. I've got my fingers crossed. I'm still wearing my mask, but I'm hopeful.
Well, things are going to get better when we see the shovels back in Epic Universe.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the shovels have never completely stopped. There's a lot of infrastructure work that's still moving along.
Right. Well, when we see the vertical steel beams being installed, I should say.
When we see roller coaster track getting put up, then we can talk.
So Seth, some of us didn't actually get a book. Where can I get a book?
The book is available from fine bookstores, wherever fine bookstores still exist. Your Jeff Bezos controlled giant conglomerates online. But the best place to get the book is to go directly to the source, theunofficialguides.com, and we will ship a copy right out to you.
Thank you.
If you haven't, do you still sell the Sam Genoway book?
We do. I still believe there are copies of that available. And
Universal versus Disney, the unofficial guide to the American theme park's greatest rivalry, is a must-read for any of my listeners listening right now. It is a really good book.
Yeah, Sam writes great books. He's also got a couple books about the history of Universal in Hollywood. And he was kind enough to let me put a little excerpt of his book in my book. That should, hopefully it's there to tease you and get you interested. Because if you've, ever wondered about, this epic battle between Mickey and Woody Woodpecker, Sam's book is probably the best researched source for that information.
Yeah, if you're a fan of the Yesterworld or Defunctland channels, and every time they bring up Michael Eisner versus Universal, this is the book to read.
Awesome.
All right, but we're talking about the unofficial guide to Universal Orlando. Thank you so much for joining us, Seth Kubersky.
Thank you so much.
And where can we find you on the social medias?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @skubersky and at the UG Series.
I like following along when you're in the parks because you always tell me what's going on the UG Series account, especially, so that I know all the minor little tiny changes, and then I can go the next day and cover them myself and steal from your test for once.
And I do the exact same by following your Twitter feed. And I also, to give one last little plug, you can also catch me every Sunday night live on Facebook, and then on iTunes podcast on the Attractions Magazine podcast.
Thanks so much for joining us, Seth.
All right, let's do it again sometime soon.
Yes, in the real podcast. Also, though, if you haven't heard it, go Patreon, as low as $1 a month. You can go listen to Seth talking about Terminator 2 3D, Battle Across Time. Good episode.
Good times. It's sad. Now that Barney is gone, all 3 attractions that I worked on at Universal, Ghostbusters, Terminator, and Barney, all extinct. Yeah, I am the kiss of death.
It clearly is your fault. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.